College sports are at a crisis. I'll tell you why, but also provide a solution on how we can fix right now college sports for the better going forward where everybody wins. First, appreciate you wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching. If it's on the Hick at Night podcast feed, Night spelled Nite, appreciate you listening there. If you're checking us out on YouTube, channel name is Ryan Hickey. Appreciate your support there as well. Thank you. I see I'm hitting the microphone. I'm so excited. Thank you for your support. It does mean a lot in tuning into what I have to say, but also I want to hear what you have to say, especially on the YouTube comments. Write your thoughts on what I am, at least my suggestion for making college athletics better for everybody. Love to hear I'll give you my suggestion. Would love to hear yours. But like I just said in the open, college sports are right now at a crisis point because some of the biggest names, some of the best coaches in college basketball and college football are feeling like they're getting driven out of their sport. Coach K, Roy Williams, Jay Wright in college basketball. Now in college football, we just saw this past offseason, Nick Saban retire. Jim Harbaugh leave to go to the NFL. And now even Jeff Hafley leaving Boston College to go be the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, leaving a Power 5 head coaching job. I get it, BC's not the sexiest, but still, you are a Power 5 head coach. And you're leaving to go be a defensive coordinator for the Packers? This is problematic. This is problematic and all tied around NIL. And we have to put a stop to this because I don't think for the health of basketball, and college football, seeing the best young coaches, the best and biggest stars of their sport, feeling like they got to leave because they don't want to deal with all the BS that's going around right now with everything else they have to deal with outside of just coaching the team. Now, what I'm not going to suggest here, before I give you my actual solution, is taking away NIL and limiting the transfer portal. If you listened or watched me before, which hopefully you have, if you haven't, first time welcome, you know my stance then. I am very pro NIL, very pro transfer portal. I think is easily the two best things that have happened to college athletics in my lifetime, being almost 30 years old, easily. And maybe I can go back even further than that because they have promoted parity and they have made now the gap between the haves and the have-nots smaller than ever. And I think that makes watching the sports more enjoyable because there's less predictability, more upsets. Even if favorites are winning, the games are closer. I mean, look at college basketball this year. It's been unbelievably chaotic, which is fun. College football, I mean, this was the most wide open college football season we have had in 25 years. NIL and transfer portal, I think, are the two things you can link directly. Their introduction also coinciding with parity. It is awesome. It is also, though, right now, with as lawless as it is, completely the wild, wild west. I mean, the NCAA is useless. I mean, they are out there enforcing some rules, but not enforcing others. Some schools are getting in trouble for NIL. Some aren't, even though NIL is legal, but there's not really many rules, but there are some rules. But are they following the rules? I'm not sure. Does the NCAA even know? I don't know. Let's just go to court and figure this out and fight and spend millions of dollars in legal fees to actually not have anything come about it. It is a mess. So I don't think limiting or taking away NIL or transfer portal is an option. But what I do think we need, it's a very simple solution to make players happy and coaches happy, because there's a happy medium here. All it is organization. Organizing NIL so that it's clean, easy to decipher, and it's not an everyday process. And organizing the transfer portal dates so you're not re-recruiting your kids every single day, but you also allow kids to have freedom to move. I think the first step in organizing NIL and transfer portal to get a happy medium for coaches and players, number one, first and foremost here, is a Power 5 breakaway. That's where that has to be the first step. Before we go any further than that, the first step for college athletics to get organized and keep your coaches in your sport is by having a Power 5 breakaway. I guess at this point, Power 4. I keep saying Power 5, but unfortunately, RIP to the Pac-12. A Power 4 breakaway where it's the 60, 65 schools that are financially similar, that are all on the same playing field in terms of competing for a championship. moving them and having a breakaway and having them form their own league. Because forming their own league is not even just a competitive thing. It is for a rules thing. The fact that right now in college football, we have 130 schools ranging from Alabama to Akron playing under the same rules, even though financially they couldn't be more different. The type of players they have couldn't be more different. Leagues they're playing in couldn't be more different. It makes no sense. It's like the NFL and college football being under the same rule book. It's apples and oranges. You have to break away to be able to form a league where every single school that you're competing against in that league, they are under the same rules, but they're under the same rules where it makes sense for everybody. You can't, it's literally impossible to create a rule book that Akron can follow and also Alabama can follow. It is not feasible. So the first step here is having a Power 5 breakaway and having a president created. A president for college basketball, a president of college football. You can't have the NCAA running this anymore because they're an absolute joke and they're an absolute mess. And they are the reason why we are in this wild, wild west nature to begin with. Breakaway, start with a Power 5 president, someone similar to Roger Goodell who runs the NFL, and be able to organize the sport. That is first and foremost. Because you can't get NIL and transfer portal, not limitations, but organization, we'll say. You can't have NIL and transfer portal organization when the gap is so wide with, again, schools that you're talking about. It's like you're playing two different sports. So I think if you have a Power 5 breakaway, that from there gets everyone on the same page. And then, once you have the breakaway, then I think we can actually start talking about, well, how can we create some sort of, I don't want to say rule book, because again, I hate the word rules because then I just go right to the NCAA and I just get mad and they're ridiculous, and enforcement and infractions is a whole different thing. But it's like basically, for lack of a better term at this moment, some sort of rule book for NIL and transfer portal. I mean, some ideas I thought of in my head here. You want to do an NIL contract where out of high school you sign a 2-year NIL deal and you're kind of locked in, so kids are not going to coach and basically being like, hey, I deserve more, or coaches worrying about the collective. Like, if you're a head coach, I don't think you should really care about how much anyone is getting paid. It's like the head coach in the NFL. You don't talk about contracts. I don't think head coaches in college basketball or college football should worry about contracts. Leave it to the collective. Maybe that's a whole different rule set in and of itself where the coach is just completely detached from the collectives at each school. Maybe that's part of it. I'm here for it. But whatever it is, like, I do think that head coaches in college football and basketball should not be responsible or answering questions about how much one player is getting paid, how much another should get paid, etc. That's, to me, that's with the collective, and that's like if you hire an agent, that's with your agent and the collective. Coach is out of it. And then the other thing is, like, in that similar vein, is it like a 2-year commitment, to a school before you can enter the transfer portal if your coach doesn't leave? Like, if you're an 18-year-old kid and you commit to Alabama and you commit to Kalen DeBoer and Kalen DeBoer is there, and 2 years later you don't like it, then you want to transfer, that might be the way to go. And if he leaves after a year, then you can transfer for free. Like, I don't know what it is. I do think it is a little unfair for coaches to have to re-recruit their roster basically every single year. I get the frustration there. Absolutely. You don't want to do that. Recruiting high school kids is hard enough. So I do think that if you want to create like a 2-year window, if you will, of, hey, once you commit, you're there for 2 years. And then after that, if you're not playing the way you want, then we could talk and we'll see if you want to transfer, you can transfer. But unless your coach leaves, I think you're locked in for 2 years. Like, these are workshopping ideas, but I think ideas where it's a happy medium, where players are getting compensated and still have their freedom, while coaches also have less headaches to deal with, which does not leave them basically wanting anywhere but here. Running to the NFL, running to retirement, running to go anywhere but be right now in college athletics. That is horrible for the sport. As someone who loves college football, it is my favorite sport we have. I don't want to see the Nick Sabans of the world and the Jim Harbaughs of the world driven out. I don't want to see in 10 years Kirby Smart driven out of town. There is a happy medium. There absolutely is. between players getting paid, having the freedom to transfer, but also coaches not basically running 24/7, 365 to keep their program in order, to keep kids on the team, and then also try to game plan and win games. There has to be some sort of happy medium here, and I think that's achievable. But it all starts first and foremost with a Power 5 breakaway. Get all of the like-minded, financially similar schools together in a league. Let's get a president for college football. Get a president for college basketball. And make uniform rules where every school can abide by them, but it makes sense for everybody. That, first and foremost, before we start talking about anything else, a Power 5 breakaway is the first step here to diminishing the crisis right now that's going on in college athletics, where some of the best coaches, who are, by the way, the faces of the program, right? We could talk about the players, and there have been a lot of great players. But when you're shuffling 3 or 4 years in and out, at the end of the day, the coaches are the institutions. The coaches are the ones we gravitate towards. We love if they're coaching our team. We despise if they're coaching our rivals' team. But you see guys like Saban, who's a character, Jim Harbaugh, who's a character. Those guys are good for college football. I want more of them around. I'm not a Coach K guy whatsoever. But Coach K being in college basketball is great for the sport. Making it to where they don't feel like as soon as they get the first exit, they got to run for it. Make it where they want to actually be in college basketball, in college football, is the way we got to make college athletics going forward, to where, again, you keep the best in your sport and not drive them to retirement or drive them to the NFL.